A thing that I find interesting when I go to places, maybe it makes me sound a bit morbid, but I like to go to the cemetery and have a look around and see the different tombstones and think of what kind of lives they led. I was recently in St. Croix in the Danish West Indies, as I like to call it. Yeah, and I walked around and I could see some Danish names, and it said born in Køge, Denmark, and Copenhagen and other places, and I just think, how did they end up here? And so when I got here to Elk Horn, I took a walk around, and even more Danish names. It's almost only Danish names. A few of them have been Americanized a bit over the years, like Sorensen and Fredriksen. We wouldn't spell it exactly like that. And then I spoke to Trudy, my host here, and she said, "Oh, you gotta speak to Warren."
Yes, it was Trudy that told me that I should speak to Warren, who's in charge of the Elk Horn Cemetery. She called him a bit of a detective when it comes to the history of the people buried here. And like me, he finds it fascinating, with names being slightly changed and Americanized, like Ebbelskiver and Medistopose.
You have the same fascination about that as I do. Is that right, Rowan?
Oh, exactly. And, you talk about the names. And I'm the sexton at the cemetery here, and so...
What does that mean?
Well, I take care of the cemetery, the records. I mark out where holes need to be dug. I know our cemeteries are different than those in Denmark. And so I'm in charge of the cemetery, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Yeah, but you haven't done that. Were you a school teacher?
I was a school teacher for 27 years, yes.
We are back in Iowa with the third and final installment of my episodes from Elk Horn, a little piece of Denmark on the prairie.
The ultimate destination for armchair travelers who are looking for inspiration to get out into the real world and let loose their wanderlust. This is The Radio Vagabond.
It's very interesting. I need to keep track of families, and generations of families. And they did change their names a lot. And a lot of times they changed their names because they wanted to become more Americanized. Yeah. And that was especially true with the advent of World War I. Because even up to that point, there was still some pretty solid lines. Well, I don't want to get too wild here, but
be wild.
Okay, but the Danes were still in their own community. It was the Danish community, and people around the area, certainly knew of the Danes and interacted with the Danes mostly on a business-like level, But as far as culturally, the Danes were their own entity here. And so there was a mystery probably to the Danish community here, to those even within 10 or 20 miles around the area. And so they wanted to become more and more Americanized, but still they did not want to give up their Danish heritage. They're very strong towards that. But World War I pushed them into becoming more Americanized, because the governor of Iowa actually came up with proclamations that he did not want Danish religious services in Danish. He wanted them in English. And so they had to make some compromises that way to have a Sunday morning English service, and then at night they'd have a Danish service. So they had to make compromises like that. So this whole transition of becoming more Americanized from their Danish heritage, it's all out there in the cemetery, and all the people and the stories that are buried out there. When I came here in 1978, there were still quite a few people that spoke Danish. There's very few now. There's very few left that speak Danish. And with that, you kind of start to lose some of that heritage. But we do our best to try to keep it going here with our windmill and our the museum. And
do you have Danish blood in your veins?
I do not, and I probably cuss Danes more than I praise them, but they understand, and I understand. But, I've been drawn into more and more European history and continental history, and the more and more I read, I'm English. There's got to be a lot of Danish in that English, too. There has to be. So I probably have some Danish in my blood somewhere.
You gotta do one of those gene tests things.
Yeah.
But the thing that I was hoping to find out here in Elk Horn, because we're in almost smack in the middle of the U.S. And it's a long way, especially without cars and trains, from Ellis Island in New York, where a lot of them came in with on the ships when they came from Denmark. How did they end up all the way in here? What's your theory on that?
Well, it was just a progression from the East Coast. Most of them got off in New York City. There were no jobs in New York City. It was just flooded with immigrants. And so they would move further west. And the progression was kind of to Michigan and to Illinois. A lot of them, especially a lot of them that ended up here in Elk Horn, took the train to Omaha, Nebraska, got off the train, and knew of a Danish settlement here in Elk Horn, and so they walked from Omaha up here to Elk Horn. And the Danes that were already established here, and one of them, Rasmus Hansen, who was kind of, the father of this whole Danish community here, he would help them get started and help them build a little shack out in the country. And I actually I've read about descriptions, and I know you can't see this on the podcast, but I'll show it to you. This is kind of what those sheds look like. Dane that's standing in the doorway there.
What we see here is an old black and white photo of a small shack, and a wooden shack, and then there's a Dane or a guy standing in the doorway in his finest clothes, with a frying pan in one hand, and then there's a sign saying "Girl Wanted."
Yes, yeah. He must have found that girl, and they settled into their shed.
But I read someplace that the state was giving away free land. Is that right?
The Homestead Act in 1862 would give you 160 acres. As a matter of fact, my great-grandfather homesteaded in Nebraska, and you had to work and make improvements on the land, on those 160 acres for 5 years, and then for the deed fee of $14, you'd own 160 acres. Mm-hmm. And so there were a lot of Danes that did exactly that.
160 acres, how many football fields is that?
Is
that a lot, or because
it is a lot.
Especially
compared to Danish farms, it is a lot. Yeah. Hundreds. Well, it would be a quarter mile by a quarter mile.
Oh, yeah.
So,
that's good.
And with the equipment they had back then, that was a lot.
Oh yeah.
A lot to work, and especially the prairie. A lot of it had never been broken, and in other words, plowed up, and that was a real chore to do something like that. I give tours and talks to different Danish bus tours that come through, and I make this explanation. Now you have to understand, Danes, for Americans, 150 years ago, that's ancient history for us.
Oh, yeah.
That's a long time ago. And for Denmark, it's like last week, And so you got to kind of put those things in perspective, And so when we talk about plowing up the prairie for the very first time to farm it, that wasn't that long ago here in the United States. Whereas you can just imagine how long European soil has been farmed. So there's a huge difference there, and it's part of the wealth and prosperity of America also.
This episode is brought to you in part by this website called hotels25.com. If you're a regular listener, you have heard me mention this before, and I can't say this enough. This is a cool website. It helps you find the cheapest hotel rooms around the world. hotels25.com. You should try it out. It actually works.
He's the radio vagabond, podcasting finding its way from icy peaks to tropic greens display. Every download a story key, inspiring souls to wander, to live and be free.
We'll be back with Warren in a bit as we take a walk of the cemetery and travel back in time as he shares some stories of the past. But first, let's jump a few hours ahead in time. As the sun is setting, I'm walking over to Bornholm Street to meet with the mayor of Elk Horn, Stan Jens. He invited me for a beer in his garage next to his 2 Harley-Davidson bikes.
First of all, Stan, thank you so much for inviting me here. It's such an honor to be with the, I don't know how many mayor terms you've done, but it's quite a lot.
Well, this is the 4th term. I'm on my 4th term, so thanks for coming.
Yeah. And they tell me around town when I said that I was going to come here, and I said, "Oh, you better bring enough tape. I hope you have enough tape because."
They say I talk a lot? Are you kidding me? Oh no, yeah, no, I can tell stories for days.
Yeah. And for my international listeners, people don't know probably who you are, but I would say 95%, unless people have been living under a rock in Denmark, knows who you are, because you became quite famous when there were some documentaries and some follow-up shows, some cooking shows, and you became a bit of a household name in Denmark.
Yeah, I was told once by a friend of mine from Denmark that watches American football. He likes the New England Patriots, and Tom Brady's their quarterback. And he said, "Stan, I don't think you understand. I can show people in Denmark a picture of Tom Brady, and they don't know who that is. Yeah. But everybody knows who you are." He said, "You're more famous in Denmark than Tom Brady." And that kind of made me laugh.
And I almost said, "Tom who?"
Yeah, exactly. I was with a group of retired school teachers that were traveling the United States, and they had invited me. This was after all the documentaries and things, but they invited me down to the bar to have a beer with them here in town. So I went down there, and one of them told me, he said, "The 2 most popular Americans in Denmark are you and Barack Obama." And I just lost it. That's funny as hell.
Yeah, so I certainly know who Stan Jens is, and way more than I know Tom, what's his name, Brady. Stan Jens is quite a character with a long beard and an outgoing personality. And in the show, he tried to make some Danish leverpostej and got the recipe wrong because of Google Translate. Here's Lisa Steinricks from the Windmill about that.
And then when our mayor, Stan, made leverpostej, he translated it, used Google Translate. Well, it said sweet milk instead of like cream. And that's when he used, we call it carnation sweetened milk. It's a can and it's full of sugar.
Sweet condensed milk.
Yeah, so it had to do with Google Translator.
Yeah.
That was just how it came out.
And sweet milk is actually just the Danish word for the kind of milk with the most fat. It's very common, and it's not sweet.
No.
And here is a clip from the cooking show.
My leverpostej, I think Google Translate maybe wasn't quite, clear to me.
And so Stan, that's how he made it, and that's kind of where the humor came in. And of course, Stan is a very energetic, he's a fun man. He drives a Harley, he likes his guns, we like him. And the guy is a mayor, and he also runs a huge trucking company. He's a manager, and a lot of people don't know that he's a very good businessman too. And we've always loved Stan, and he's done a lot of good things for our community. And so, but yet he's funny, and I think Denmark really enjoyed him.
In the cooking show, you were cooking and got the leverpostej horribly wrong. Did you learn to do it? Can you do it now, and are you doing it?
Yes, I have learned to do it. Actually, that was a real recipe that I followed, and I'd made it before that way. And I didn't realize the sweetness didn't belong in it, But yeah, and then when Spiesmed, and we did that on the documentary, when Spiesmed Priest came to town, then we learned the right way. And they made it all from scratch, and it's super easy. It was so much easier than I thought it would be. But there's a few things you have to have, you got to grind the liver and all that stuff. It's a little bit different, but man, is it delicious.
If you've been listening for a while, you know a thing or two about Talibot. And now, He would like to know a bit about you. So please fill out the 5-minute survey and answer a few questions. It's on theradiovagabond.com/whoareyou.
The Radio Vagabond.
Mayor Stan Jens is very active in the community. He helps organize local events like the annual Tivoli Fest, where he makes sure that everything runs smoothly. And he works hard to keep the cultural heritage of Elk Horn alive through these events. As mayor, Stan Jens has taken on many local projects. He works on improving the town's infrastructure and ensuring community safety. His hands-on and friendly approach has earned him respect in Elk Horn. He truly represents the values and aspirations of the town.
You became famous as the mayor here and a sidekick to especially the cooking shows. I love those where you were trying to do some Danish food and your dog wouldn't eat it and all of that. Did all of that just come natural to you?
Yeah, I think most of it did. I mean, I'm an outgoing guy. I don't, like they say in America, I don't know a stranger, Friends of mine have teased me. If I stand in line to get tickets to the baseball game, whenever I get done, they're like, okay, who did you meet? Where are they from? Have they been to Elk Horn? Because I'm sure you talked to them about it all. Yeah. But so that part of it did come kind of naturally. And I'll be honest with you, when they approached us about the first documentary, we thought, well, this isn't, we were thinking of Iowa Public Television, maybe 1,000 people watch it or something like that. We had no idea. As a town, as a community, we had no idea how big it was in Denmark.
And what did it mean to the city? Especially among Danes, you almost had an invasion of Danish tourists after that.
Yeah, we did, actually. It was only probably 3 days after the documentary, there was a group of Danish tourists in the United States on a bus tour, and they redid their route, so they were coming to Elk Horn instead of where it was, because Elk Horn wasn't on their map. I think after that whole summer and into the spring, there was someone from Denmark in our town every day. At least one person or a couple or a group of 4. Mm-hmm. Every day for about a year and a half, there was someone from Denmark in town.
Yeah. Is that good or bad? Obviously, it's good for the economy of the city, but was it too much?
No, I don't think so. And I think I'd be a good judge of it because I met most of them. I made several trips down to the windmill or somewhere, to meet some people, and which was good. But no, I think it's been beneficial to the town in more ways than one. We've met we have actually got a lot of really good friends in Denmark now that we didn't have in connections, and the windmill has connections. And just for instance, there was a remoulade. I'm probably saying it wrong. Remoulade. Oh, yeah. Somebody in Denmark that makes it, and Lisa couldn't get it. The person that she was getting it from no longer could get it, and so we kind of made that connection, and that person to her, so maybe they could ship them some remoulade, just stuff like that.
Yeah. And actually, I just 5 minutes ago was at the windmill and got a Danish hot dog with remoulade that Lisa made herself because she wasn't able to get. So she knows how to do it, and it was so good I nearly cried. And I said, "Are you sure that you're married?"
That is one of the things about being in Denmark. When I was there, everybody, you have to have a hot dog, and I'm thinking, a hot dog? What the hell? Yeah, it's a hot dog. No. So we went down to the town square there in Copenhagen, where the mayor is, that big building. Anyway, there was, and there was a little hot dog trailer there. And so that was my first ever Danish hot dog. And then after that, I ate several Danish hot dogs because they were so damn good. Yeah. So, but I've been over there twice, and I've probably eaten half a dozen Danish hot dogs in 2 trips. So.
Yeah, but you were there to go on TV.
Yeah, I was there. Jordan and I were there before the first documentary. They took us out, and they did like some promotional stuff, and we were on the after show. Is that how you say it? Did some radio stations and stuff before it hit. Now remember, I'm thinking maybe 1,000 people are going to see this, so I'm okay. Whatever, we'll do what we got to do, But then when it started hitting the next day, how big this thing was.
This is the oldest part of the cemetery here, and you'll notice that many of the stones, their inscriptions are in Danish.
Yeah. When I look around, I see so many Danish names. There's Rasmussen, Henningsen, Bonnesen, Petersen, Jensen, Sørensen. So many Danish names here.
Yes, I mean, I would say, 90% probably Danish or so, or of Danish heritage. Yeah. are buried here. Just as a little side note, Hansen is by far the most numerous of names that are buried here, is Hansen. Yeah. So there's a lot of Hansens. Yeah. And a lot of Petersons, and Peterson has been spelled many, many different ways, you know.
And Christensen.
And Christensen, yes.
From the quaint streets of Denmark at 50 years wide, he traded his routine for the world outside. A microphone, his scepter, his voice a bold embrace, capturing tales of every land, every place. He's the radio vagabond on airways. He reigns from vibrant cityscapes to sunlit plains. Each episode a saga, each tale a flight, stirring souls to explore through day and night.
Let's talk a little bit about the Danishness of this community. You have well, Jens is a very Danish name. It's not a last name; it's a first name. But you have Danish blood in your veins.
Yes, I'm fourth generation Dane from the Sorensens. My grandmother were Sorensens, and they came over. My grandfather actually came over here. I think he was born here. His older siblings were born in Denmark. Yeah, and interestingly enough, his name was Jens Sorensen. But yeah, and then my wife, she's an Albertson, and she's third generation Dane. And so and you know, I think some of the people in Denmark think that's why people move here, but it's not. It's just, you know, a lot of them, well, their families are from around here. Mine wasn't, but like her family grew up in Kimmelton area, you know, and farmed out in the country. But it's not like people come to town, you know, the United States and say, well, my last name's Anderson, I better move to Elk Horn, you know. But it just works out that way. But I believe it's 56% of the citizens of Elk Horn can still trace their roots back to Denmark. So we're what's known as the largest rural Danish settlement in the United States.
And you still embrace the Danishness. Is that because of tourists or because you just enjoy it?
It's been that way since I moved here, and my wife grew up that way. Our son grew up that way. I mean, I know it's not very Danish, but on Christmas we have æbleskiver and medisterpils. That's just what we have. You know what I mean?
I had that this morning.
It's not bad, is it? Some of the people are like, "That's crazy. You can't eat those together." Sure, you can. Watch them eat. You know, but I think that since the documentaries, a lot more of the younger people are like, "Hey, man, it's cool to be Danish. Let's, you know, I want to get into it a little more." But yeah, as far as that goes, my wife and her mom and grandma have always made leverpastei way better than I do. But you always had æbleskiver. Most every house in town has an æbleskiver pan hanging. If not just for decoration, it's because they use it. You know, we've got several of them. But
and you know what the funny thing is, as I told Trudy this morning when she was making æbleskiver for me, on her æbleskiver pan, we don't have them. My mom had one, but we buy them in a plastic bag in a supermarket and then just shove in the oven.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. When we went over there for the first documentary, they had a party. The guys from United had a party to watch this show and invited everybody that worked on it and stuff. And that's what we had. They served æbleskiver and medisterpils. And interestingly enough, that's almost what the documentary was called. They were thinking about naming it æbleskiver and medisterpils just because they knew it would capture the Danes would be like, what is this craziness, you know? Yeah. So, yeah. But like I said, there's probably been an uptick in Danish flags hung up since then, but it's always been, we've always had Danish and American flags on Main Street as far back as I can remember, as long as we can find a volunteer to put them up and take them down every day. Yeah. They've always been there. Yeah.
Right here is the father of Elk Horn, as I call him, Rasmus Hansen. Yeah. And he served in the Navy in the Second Schleswig War of 1864. And it was right after that he came over here. Yeah,
he was born in 41, so he would be in his mid-20s.
Yes, and he lived really a very tragic life because he had 3 wives, and 2 of them died at a very young age. And I think he had 14 children, but 8 of them died. Very young. I mean, the guy lived a really tough life, but he was a hard worker, and he was
was he farming?
he was farming, and he started a grocery business here, store in Elk Horn. He was as some of his kids could take over some of the farming, then there's an insurance company, or an early insurance company that started up that he was the president of. He was just active in a lot of the civic and business activities here in Elk Horn. I mean, he just did everything. But he lived a very difficult life, tough life.
Yeah. And he died in 1923.
Yeah.
So at that time he was an old man.
Yes. Yeah.
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 And then did you hear we had the World Ebelskiever Eating Championship? No. We had it like 3 years in a row, but it got too expensive. But so you've heard of like Nathan's hot dog eating thing? Mm-hmm. Yeah. That group put on, we paid dearly, but they actually had that World Championship Ebelskiever eating tournament. Man, that's a tongue twister, isn't it? Got another beer. That's a mouthful. Yeah. But yeah, the first guy, don't quote me on these numbers, I have to look it up. The first guy ate like 80-some Ebelskiever in 10 minutes. And then the second year, it was over 90. Somebody ate over 90 of them in 10 minutes. Now, I'll give you a little inside scoop on this deal, because when you get, well, you guys cheat. You get the frozen ones over there. But when you make them, they're just, well, like you had this morning, they're just kind of airy and, like.
Oh, no, mine wasn't. And I thought, okay, the ones that I buy frozen are more airy. I had 4, and it was almost a full meal.
Really? Okay. Because when we usually make them, there's a lot like airiness. They're kind of like a donut, like a glazed donut when it's fresh. Yeah. But these were, we made them early because it's hard to make that many. We don't know how many they're going to eat. And we froze them in packs of 10. Yeah. And you take them out, and they're like a cake donut. They're not good. And I'm thinking, how in the hell can you eat 90-some of them things? Oh. Yeah. Oh. But, no, the fresh ones, I can eat 5 or 6. Yeah. But that's about it. And I'm a big guy, but 90-some, yeah. But we did that for 3 years in a row, and it was fun. I mean, the Major League Eating, that's what it's called. Major League Eating is the ones that put it on. We had to pay them, but then they get the candidates, or, the eaters from all over the country flew in just for this. Oh. So, yeah, and then we had a belt, and it had an Ebelskiever pan on it, on the belt, like a championship belt. It was pretty cool. It was fun. We had a lot of fun with it.
This is one of our early pastors, Pastor Anker, and he was born in Denmark in 1848. In 1882, he accepted the call to become pastor here after serving the church for 3 years in Chicago. So you can see a lot of the Danes that came here didn't come directly to Elk Horn. Yeah. They came from further back east and then made their way here as the community became known to people and grew. And then it was said he was a very good-looking man, and the area women loved to come and hear his lectures.
Hear in quotes.
Yes, yeah. But
yeah.
And we had a Danish folk school here, and the pastors at the church then, it was their responsibility to take care of the folk school also.
Yeah, and obviously I know what a folk school is in folkeskole, but for my international, how is that a folk school different than a regular public school?
Well, I suppose the biggest difference would be is, they tried to incorporate a lot of Danish culture and history and Danish Lutheran religion in it, along with teaching the children English, mathematics, and the such. So there's a lot more of the Danish side of the. Yeah. Here we have Jen.
Otto. That is Prince
Christian.
Otto.
Yes. Who told you about Prince Otto?
I've done my research.
Okay. Well, then you probably know all about
I
him.
I went to Bestermore's house yesterday, and this is where Jens Otto Christiansen is buried, and he was an eccentric guy in the way he was, what he was wearing, and he got the nickname Prince Otto.
Yes. He opened a 5 and 10 cent store but preferred to call it a 10-cent store. They called them 5 and 10s back there.
Yeah.
But either way, it did not show a profit when he discovered many of his wholesale prices were more than 10 cents. So he wasn't a great businessman. He built 2 Victorian-style homes, and one is Bestimore's.
Yeah, I got the story that he built this house and then went and knocked on her door, and he was in his 40s and she was maybe a late teen. And said,
I think that's a late teen is stretching it.
It is.
From what I understand, yes. Yeah. 14 years before his death, he wrote his obituary.
He wrote it.
Yes. He said, "Our practice of writing a person's obituary after they are dead should be changed," he thought. He thought many of his friends would be interested in reading his while he was still here to discuss it with them. So he was quite a guy.
Yeah. Everything I heard about him, I would get along with this guy.
Yes.
He sounds fantastic.
He was something else.
Yeah.
He's the radio vagabond with tales at every face, charting maps, unknowing man. He's got it made, he's got it made. These vagabond shoes, they're blazing his crusade. Every step, every story, gotta keep moving.
So I know that you drive Harleys, you are a fun guy, and you shoot guns. And you're the mayor, but you also have a real job.
Yeah, I actually manage a trucking terminal for Estes Express Lines. It's the largest family-owned LTL carrier in the United States. We have over 200 terminals all over the United States, and we pick up LTL is less than truckload, so a skid of freight here and there. But I manage the Omaha terminal as well as the Grand Island, Nebraska terminal, and that's what I do. My real job. Yeah. I've done that for last 9 years. Yeah.
But the mayor thing, that's obviously not a full-time job. But what is it like an honorary position?
No, we have a meeting at least once a month. We meet the first Monday of every month to discuss the budget. You know, once a year the budget comes up. We have to figure out the budget, all that kind of stuff, and then just the kind of the day-to-day stuff. We've got one city guy and we've got a city clerk, and they take care of stuff during the day. But then if something pops up where we need to spend a bunch of money or something. We're a small town. We don't have a lot of money. So we'll have to have a meeting and discuss it. So I've been doing that for 14 years. And I'll tell you a secret as long as you don't tell nobody. My term is not actually up. The county told me my term was up this year, so I'd have to rerun. And I decided that was a good time to call it quits. After 14 years, they called me back last Thursday and said they made a mistake. I've actually got 2 more years left. So,
and you weren't even counting.
Yeah, no, I thought I had 2 more years. That's what I told them. I said, hell, I'm in the middle of a 4-year term. I've got 2 more years. And no, you're up. Okay. And so I've kind of prepared myself, and I've kind of, I'm going to do other stuff, fundraising for some stuff I feel strongly about, some nonprofits. And so I've kind of, I kind of backed out thinking I'm done, I've kind of, so we'll see what happens. Yeah.
And the funny thing is, people have told me that he's almost not mayor anymore because the word has gotten out that that it's almost over and he's not running again. They have to stick with you another 2 years.
Yeah, you never know. Some of them are going to be bummed, but that's okay. After 14 years, what's another 2? But it's funny when you think about it, and me and my wife have talked about it. 14 years. So you go into the high school up here. And the kids in the senior class, the oldest kids in this high school, I'm damn near the only mayor they've ever known. The kids that grew up here in town, that's all they've ever known because they don't remember anybody before that.
Well, I think I predict that in 2 years' time, when they can't find another candidate, they pull you back in.
I think they better find somebody. They got 2 years to do it.
I was actually 100% right in my prediction.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Since I was there, the 2 years were up, but Stan Jens was persuaded to continue with yet another term. The little town is so full of interesting stories. Everyone has a lot to share. And on my way home from Stan Jens' garage on Bornholm Street, I stopped to take a photo of the sign.
I'm here on Bornholm Street, about to take a photo of the corner of Bornholm Street and Tivoli Street, and then I meet a Hansen.
And yes, I'm Donna Hansen, and I live on Jutland Street, or I think you guys say Ulen, right?
Yeah,
right.
And that's where I'm from.
Okay.
So
Okay.
But you told me that somebody took the sign.
Yeah, somebody took the sign. It's been gone now for probably the last 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And I just hate it because I've lived here now for 25 years, and it's just like, oh, why did you take my sign? Of all those here in Elk Horn, why did you take my sign?
So your father was a Hansen,
and my grandmother was a Madsen.
or as we say, Madsen.
Yes, exactly. And she came over when she was 18 years old. Young.
She come alone?
Alone, because her two brothers were in Iowa, and she come over here because she needed all this wonderful world,
Yeah, the
here.
brave new world opening up, and
but it was a tough
land of opportunity, and then it was tough.
Tough world. But yeah.
Yeah. So she actually got on a boat back in Denmark all by herself, 18 years old.
And was seasick the entire way.
Oh, no.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
no.
So it wasn't a fun trip over here. And her first, coming here to get from New York City.
Yeah, get
to
from Ellis
Iowa.
Island and then all the way because you couldn't just get in a car. There were trains, but still.
And then she did. I always said I could speak a little Danish. No, it was just because Grandma was so broken Danish English that I thought I could understand a lot of it. Now that she's gone, no, I can't. I can't understand any of it.
No. So have you ever been to Denmark?
No, I haven't.
No.
I always thought I was going to, but I never. No, never
you can
have.
still do it. I hear there are flights now.
Yeah. What is that? But I guess for some reason, I don't know why. Because she was so happy to be an American. She was an American. She didn't say, I'm Danish ancestry. She didn't say that. It wasn't until Elk Horn became very Danish. Then she was much more, yes, I'm Danish too. She is a founding member up at the museum.
Oh, yeah, and I just went there yesterday.
It's a beautiful place.
It really is. Well, thank you, Donna.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. I thank you for stopping. And I'm just going to do my little walk. Exercises are exercises.
In my days here in Elk Horn, I met so many wonderful people and made so many friends. Thank you again to Lynn, Trudy, Lisa, Julie, Dia, Stan Jens, Warren, Donna, and all the other people I met here in Elk Horn for taking the time to share stories about this interesting little piece of my home country right here in the middle of America. It's been truly fascinating. Remember that I would love to hear from you. Drop me a line or a voice message by going to theradiovagabond.com/contact. And please give The Radio Vagabond a rating and a review in your podcast app. It only takes you a few minutes.
We will now be arriving at the end of this installment of the Radio Vagabond. Please remember all your belongings when you leave the episode.
My name is Palabo, and I gotta keep moving. See ya.
Radio Vagabond.
Produced by RadioGuru.co.uk.